back to the Colonel's weekly update to the stories the regime media hates. Biden says, I and all who agree with me are on the side of Bull Connor of old and Jefferson Davis because we oppose his overtly unconstitutional election bill he and his crowd call a, quote, voting rights bill, unquote. Here's the video.
I stand. I will not yield. I will not flinch. I will defend the right to vote, our democracy against all enemies, foreign and, yes, domestic. The question is, where will the institution of the United States Senate stand? Every senator, Democrat, Republican, and Independent, will have to declare where they stand, not just for the moment, but for the ages. Will you stand against voter suppression? Yes or no? That's the question they'll answer. Will you stand against election subversion? Yes or no? Will you stand for democracy? Yes or no? Here's one thing every senator, every American should remember. History has never been kind to those who've sided with voter suppression over voters' rights. And let me even be less kind for those who side with election subversion. So I ask every elected official in America, how do you want to be remembered? The consequential moments in history, they present a choice. Do you want to be the side of Dr. King or George Wallace? Do you want to be on the side of John Lewis or Bull Connor? Do you want to be on the side of Abraham Lincoln or Jefferson Davis? This is the moment to decide, to defend our elections, to defend our democracy.
Well, I got something for you, Joe. It's you and your crowd of American communists who are on the wrong side. I am on the side of the Constitution, and you are the domestic enemies. New FBI domestic enemy unit? Hello? Hello? Dissidents against the current regime can be domestic terrorists and enemies, and that the federal government is operating independently of the people's oversight, especially regarding January 6, 2021. Let's update you about a new term publicized by the publisher of Revolver News, Darren Beattie, and that is FedSurrection. Beattie has published a series of well-researched and factual articles that raise valid questions about certain actors on January 5th and 6th, 21. And two of those are a guy named Ray Epps and Stuart Rhodes. Epps is the only person caught on video actively encouraging protesters to enter the Capitol building on January 5th and 6th. And Rhodes is the head of a group called the Oath Keepers. Rhodes was identified by Mr. Beattie as one of the individuals likely to be a government asset because he had not been arrested or charged for his activities regarding January 6th at all. But just a few days ago, he was charged with conspiracy to cause an insurrection after over a year of being free to do whatever and go wherever he wanted, including buy firearms, etc. Why did the Department of Justice do this? Because we are holding them accountable and they know there was no insurrection. So look for that charge to be dismissed if an honest judge still exists at the federal circuit. Epps has come up again because the regime press outlet Washington Post, published a weekly researched and written damage control article just this week trying to justify Epps not being charged and to weaken Mr. Beattie's series of well-researched articles. Well, they'll have to do better than that. And here are the facts the Compost tried to minimize, shown to the Attorney General of the United States, Garland, at a congressional oversight hearing by Congressman Tom Massey of Kentucky. Note his cowardly non-answers.
Were agents of the government or assets of the government present on January 5th and January 6th during the protests. And I've got some pictures that I want to show you if my staff could bring those to you. I'm afraid I can't see that at all. Is that a video? All right, you have those images there, and they're captioned. They were from January 5th and January 6th. As far as we can determine, the individual who was saying he'll probably go to jail, he'll probably be arrested, but but they need to go into the Capitol the next day, is then the next day directing people to the Capitol. And as far as we can find, this individual has not been charged with anything. You said this is one of the most sweeping investigations in history. Have you seen that video or those frames from that video?
So as I said at the outset, one of the norms of the Justice Department is to not comment on impending investigations, and particularly not to comment about particular scenes or particular individuals.
I was hoping today to give you an opportunity to put to rest the concerns that people have that there were federal agents or assets of the federal government present on January 5th and January 6th. Can you tell us, without talking about particular incidents or particular videos, how many agents or assets of the federal government were present on January 6th, whether they agitated to go into the Capitol, and if any of them did?
So I'm not going to violate this norm of the rule of law. I'm not going to comment on an investigation that's ongoing.
Whose reporting has resulted in the highlighting of the political prisoners of January 6th plight testified in the House of Representatives today. Can you believe it? Here's a small portion of American Greatness reporter Julie Kelly's testimony.
Together. Ms. Kelly, let me see if I have the facts straight. First, the deputy warden at the DC jail, Ms. Landerkin, the person in charge of day-to-day operations at the jail, had a number of social media posts in the previous couple of years expressing her dislike for the former president and anyone who may or may have not supported or may have supported the president. One of those tweets, I think she said, if you're behind Trump, you are trash. And I think the ranking member of the committee put those up earlier. You, Ms. Kelly, have talked to individuals in the DC jail personally, and they have expressed the conditions under which they were being held that seem to reflect the attitude that Ms. Landerkin conveyed in that tweet. Third, on October 13th, 2021, Judge Lambert held the DC warden in contempt and asked the Department of Justice to investigate a possible civil rights violation in the way they were being held in this facility. And fourth, the U.S. Marshal Services has moved inmates out of the DC jail because of the poor conditions of that facility. Are those four facts accurate?
Yes, that is correct. Americans who protested the election of Joe Biden who are not being treated the same as other political protesters, including those with similar, if not far more dangerous offenses than what happened on January 6th. And so I appreciate the attention to this. I think it's also important to know, given all that we're hearing about the pandemic, that this Justice Department and prosecutors continue to seek pretrial detention for January 6th defendants and also extending their pretrial detention orders signed off by federal judges. There is no compassion or consideration, at least in this legal and judicial system, and it sounds like that extends throughout the country, certainly when it comes to the situation with Ms. Levy. So I once again just appreciate the committee's attention to this.
Folks, And for Joe Biden, the federal government overseers of us peasants out here, I'm being sarcastic now, we're citizens. We're citizens of a republic, a democratic republic, not a democracy. And I'm going to continue to defend the Constitution of the United States of America like I have for over 32 and a half years in this country's uniform and in her peace and in her wars, where I have commanded Americans. I will not stop reporting facts. I will not be censored. I will hold you accountable, Joe Biden, President of the United States, who has named half of the country as a bunch of Confederacy racists. That's inexcusable. It's inexcusable for the Department of Justice and America's institutions to treat citizens that were protesting like political prisoners, and for this justice system to crush them and chill the speech of people like me. And I didn't even agree with people going into that Capitol building on January 6th, but I've fought all my life to protect people's due process and the Constitution of the United States, and I will not stop. Folks, please go follow Darren Beattie at Revolver News and Julie Kelly at American Greatness, and you can subscribe to Rob Maness at robmaness.com or the Facebook page at COL Rob Maness, or on Twitter, Getter, Gab, you name it, Telegram at Rob Maness. It's all free. We don't charge anybody anything to put good, factual information and professional, experience-based, logical, correct opinion out. Until later, God bless America, and God bless all of you, and keep holding these jerks that have the power in this government accountable, because we will remove them. We will remove them. Keep the faith.